Pastor George Borghardt, and this is another Higher Things video short. How to read the Gospels. That's the subject of today's Higher Things video short. Hey, if you love these videos, if you've been daring to be Lutheran with us this Lenten and Easter seasons, we invite you to hit like and subscribe today. You can also go to support.higherthings.org and give today. Your tax-deductible gift keeps Higher Things going. We are a donor-driven organization, and we need your help. So go ahead and give today. Give today. All right. So we have 4 eyewitness testimonies to the death and resurrection of Christ. Everything he said and taught in 4 different Gospels. And that's a gift to have 4 different Gospels. And what I also want to make sure you understand is that in these 4 Gospels, they're without error. They can't err. They're God-breathed. But they're also eyewitnesses and ancient witnesses to what Jesus did and what Jesus said. So how do you read them? Well, you want to read each gospel all the way through. You will find that the first 3 gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they look the same. They sound the same. They read the same. In English, they're synoptic. S-Y-N-O-P-T-I-C. Syn as in like, and optic as in eye. They look the same. And then you have John's gospel. And John has a different style. He has different things that he keys in on and a different way of speaking. More symbols and blood and water and themes like glory and word. Now, once you've read each of the Gospels individually, and you start to study the Gospels separately, I would read each account of a pericope, a story in the Gospels together. And what I mean by that is the Lord has given us 4 different eyewitnesses accounts of events. And because these things really happened, each of the eyewitness accounts may differ slightly while telling the same thing. Differing does not mean they're in error. It simply means that they're real. What I mean by that is Thor and I have been having a fun time these last few weeks visiting with you. And different people have seen different things when it pertains to Thor. And they've reacted with different things, even though they've seen the same videos. So some people see Thor react to a treat and they think, oh, how cute it is that he's struggling for the treat and he's trying for the treat. And it's other people see Thor and they're like, wow, you're totally mean, Borghardt. Why don't you just give that dog the treat? Why do you make him work for it? And they scream at the videos, let the dog have the treat. They're watching the same thing. They're each seeing the same thing. They're each zeroing in on different things. And that's what happens with the Gospels. The Gospel writers zero in on different things. Come here, buddy. And the things that they zero in on are the things they're trying to deliver to us. And what they're trying to deliver to us is seen in what important things they latch on to. For example, the institution of the Lord's Supper is in Matthew 26, Mark 14, Luke 22. Those accounts of the Lord's Supper differ slightly. Matthew keys in on Jesus saying that this is for the forgiveness of sins, while Luke keys in on Jesus saying, do this in remembrance of me. Why? Well, clearly Matthew is tying everything into the sacrifice of Christ for the remission of sins, that he's the Passover sacrifice. While Luke is delivering that sacrifice and those very important words that find their way into the liturgy, that this is God remembering the sacrifice of Jesus. Do this in remembrance of me. And so that the sacrifice is remembered by God when we eat the bread and drink the cup. The death of Christ is proclaimed. And John doesn't seem to have an institution of a Lord's Supper. Or does he handle it differently with John 6? Again, your studying might sort of leads you to that conclusion. But nevertheless, each of the gospel writers focus in because each of their eyewitness testimonies key in on something important. Again, in court, if all three witnesses said the same exact thing with the same exact words, the defense would rip them apart as being fake. Made-up religions like Islam and Mormonism have one eyewitness who says the same thing throughout, one eyewitness. Christianity, though, because it's founded on actual facts, has four eyewitnesses who see, oh man, my messed up finger, it's kind of gross. Sorry about that. 4 different surgeries on that one finger. 4 different accounts, 4 different eyewitnesses account. And again, I'll reiterate to you, those 4 accounts agree. And that's the miraculous thing. But where their differences are, that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. It shows that these things actually happen. And all of them, all the differences in the New Testament between the eyewitness accounts of what happened to Jesus and what he said and did, all of them agree. There are differences like somebody counting 8 or 6, 8 days after or 6 days after, depending on whether you count the days. But again, there's importances on each of those differences in showing what the gospel writers are trying to deliver and what you should learn from the text. Again, though they're inspired word of God without error. I'm not saying that they have errors. What I'm saying, though, is over and against somebody, an unbeliever who would say, oh, well, Jesus says this in one gospel and this in another gospel. See, you're making an error. No. Where you have real life, you have differences, but those differences are not errors. They're just perspective differences. It's so important in figuring out what actually the text and what the Lord is actually trying to say. If you find something unique in the gospel, in only one gospel, that gospel's proprium keys you in on what the gospel writer's trying to deliver to you, what the Spirit's trying to deliver to you. And if you have all of them the same, that keys you in on something important too. And if one doesn't have it, that's important too. Seems like everything is important. Well, I'm trying to deliver that to you when you're studying the scriptures. So again, in review, I would read each gospel, especially the synoptics. They look the same. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I read them individually. Then I would read John. And then I would put each reading that I want to study together. Some books will do this. The internet will do this, where you can read Matthew's account of the feeding of the 5,000 next to Mark's account of the feeding of the 5,000 next to Luke's account of the feeding of the 5,000 and John. And there you'll find what each gospel writer's trying to deliver to you. Don't just read a commentary that says this is what the gospel writer's trying to do. Put them all next to each other and see if you come to the same conclusion as the commentaries or the Bible study book at the bottom. And in all of it, you're trying to find Jesus and what he has for you and what he's delivering for you. Not what you feel like the text says, but what Jesus is actually doing and saying. So very important. Took 9 minutes for this one because this is so very important. How to read the inspired word of God, the eyewitness testimony in the Gospels, and how to receive Jesus from it. Oh, so important. I'm Pastor George Borghardt, and this has been another Higher Things video short.